Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Hello, and you're very welcome to another episode of the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. What a weekend of football. Joining me is Kevin.
Hey, nice to see you, JP.
Joe in studio.
Good evening.
And all the way from Bonnie, Scotland, Fino, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
Good. Wish you were here, man.
Yeah, missing you already, Fino.
Oh, well, that's nice of you. That's nice of you.
Right, we're gonna run through the games that happened on the weekend. There's no games coming up this weekend coming because of the international break. Normally that would be boring, but last weekend the football was so crazy. There's so much happening. We could talk about it for 3 days, especially Liverpool's defence. But Fino, we only have you for a few minutes, so we know you're a big West Ham fan. What a win for West Ham, Fino.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, Leicester will be disappointed to lose to West Ham. They still did show some nice glimpses. They had a goal disallowed, some really nice fast passing. But yeah, West Ham again playing exceptional football. Yet another win for Irvin as Moyes works from home like the rest of us. And what we're starting to see with West Ham is Bowen, Fornals and Antonio are looking as good a front three in the Premier League as anybody, I think. We saw a stunning touch from Fornals for the second, and I think we're starting to really see Antonio come on to a bit of a game as well. So much like a Harry Kane or an Aguero or Danny Ings, I think centre-backs in the Premier League just don't want to face up to Antonio. He's so physical, he's so fast and powerful that they know they'll have been in a battle once they've had their 90 minutes with him.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, what I don't understand there is, so Leicester get a 5-2 against Man City, look absolutely unplayable, look like the candidates for another, amazing league title, and then suddenly lose 3-0 at home to West Ham. How does that even happen, or is it just the craziness of this Premier League?
I think it's the craziness of this Premier League. I think you're seeing it all over the shop. I think the lack of fans is definitely creating some freak scorelines as, I wonder if its players are treating the games as, once they go 2-0 down, are they treating them like training games, and that's allowing these crazy scorelines to happen. But to be honest, I think West Ham were good value for their win at the weekend. I just wonder whether or not the lack of transfer activity at West Ham will hinder them as they go into the rest of the season.
Or it might actually galvanise them. Did I read somewhere that Felipe Anderson was off?
Yeah, there was chat. I think he's going to Porto on a loan. The Premier League teams in the Football League can still create transfers, so I know that West Ham are still looking at Craig Dawson. There's also rumours that West Ham want Said Benrahma from Brentford as the replacement for Anderson. I think Anderson's been kind of frozen out a little bit this season, especially with the form of Bowen and Antonio, so maybe it's the best thing for all parties if he can go on loan, get some games under his belt, and then come back rejuvenated.
Fino, we saw last night that Jack Wilshere terminated his contract with West Ham. I was amazed to see that he's still actually only 28 years old, which is incredible because he's been around for what seems like forever. Is it a shame that it never quite worked out for him at West Ham?
I don't know if you were able to read his statement, but he was talking about how he's been fit for 8 full months, and whilst that doesn't seem like a lot for a lot of players, for Jack Wilshere I definitely think it's an achievement. Look, I think he's still got Premier League quality. I don't know whether or not he can do it for 40 games a season, but I think he was unlucky with the competition that he had for places in the centre of midfield. He's not going to displace a Mark Noble when he first came in as captain of West Ham. Declan Rice's form, the meteoric rise probably wasn't to be foreseen in such a way. So yeah, I definitely feel a little sorry for Jack Wilshere, but I think he definitely has deserved the opportunity to go and find a new club where he can play consistently and hopefully at a high level.
The funny thing is, Danny Welbeck is without a club as well, isn't it? Which means that 2 players, I think we were in the England squad, I wouldn't know when, but within the last couple of years, both of them are suddenly left without a club on deadline day. It's almost unbelievable.
Yeah, and the same with Daniel Sturridge as well. So I think the European Championship squad from a few years ago are now all out of contract.
Jack Wilshere reminds me of a player, Kev, you might remember, called Darren Anderton, who played for Tottenham and Portsmouth, and his nickname was Sick Note. Great potential, but he was always injured. How are things back in Scotland?
Yeah, they're all good. I mean, self-isolation is, driving me a little bit cabin feverish, but no, all good. A little colder and a little wetter than Salzburg, but it's nice to be home, nice to have some home comfort, see the family, do all that sort of stuff.
Good stuff.
And yeah.
You got a lot of sympathy for David Moyes then, I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah, me and him are two peas in a pod at the moment. Yeah. Moyes somehow via Zoom has masterminded two of West Ham's better performances in recent memory, so maybe we should just keep him locked up.
Keep him in quarantine. Okay, Fino, we won't keep you. We know you're really busy. We hope to have you for a lot longer for our next show. We're missing you here in Salzburg, and the best of luck to Scotland against Israel during the week.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much, and yeah, hopefully speak to you guys soon.
All right, Fino, take it easy, buddy.
Cheers, Fino. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Fino there live from Edinburgh. What a result for West Ham. Amazing, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't know where to start. Well, that was the earliest game, so it is the best place to start. Also an early game at St Mary's where an under fire Southampton pulled out a performance.
Yeah, it's been a really good couple of days for Southampton, I must admit, with the transfer window where they signed Theo Walcott again, who obviously will make an emotional return to St Mary's. And yeah, the performance against West Brom, to be honest, it was expected. I was fully expecting Southampton to beat West Brom. They played well against Burnley the week before. I think what was really good from a Southampton perspective is that they won a game where Danny Ings didn't score. Obviously, Southampton have been incredibly reliant on Danny Ings for the last year to 18 months. So to score 2 goals, to keep a clean sheet, Danny Ings didn't score. It was a really positive performance. And to have 6 points after 4 games is a pretty good return for Southampton.
It's not bad, is it? Because after those 2 defeats, and with some other strange results kicking about, you saw like Palace win their first 2 as well. It must have been like you must have been thinking, oh God, it would be terrible to be adrift of a few of those clubs like that.
Yeah, and I think when you see teams like Sheffield United and Burnley who haven't picked up a win yet, I know there's only been 4 games of the season, but already it's looking like a fairly big gap to the likes of Palace, Southampton, Wolves, etc. So it was a really important win, especially as after the international break, Southampton have got Chelsea and then Everton. So you can't, you wouldn't expect them to pick up many points from those 2 games.
Well, they got three from the game against Everton, obviously, but we'll get onto that.
I severely doubt it. Big win for Southampton. Good stuff there, Joe. Arsenal also in action. Winners against Sheffield United, 2-1. Saka and Pepe. Arsenal up to 9 points. They were impressive without looking, I suppose, a Rolls Royce, but they got the job done. Sheffield United, like you said, stuck down to the bottom of the table, pointless.
Yeah, it seemed like a very un-Arsenal-like performance, to grind out a 2-1. They've had a couple of those performances already this season where they haven't played that well, but they've managed to, pick up the 3 points, which is the sign of a good team.
A recurring theme on this podcast, Joe, the ability to not play all that well, pick up a win, and that's how you win league titles, as Liverpool showed last year. And
not last week.
Not last week. But we'll get onto that in a minute.
Okay, Wolves winners against Fulham, which was predicted 1-0 for Wolves. Neto with the goal. Wolves half decent start to this season.
Half decent start, but Fulham in
dire straits. Yeah, 4 games, no points, and it looks pretty bleak for them. They are our favourite to go down. Wolves in 13, 6 points from 4 games. Now things start getting very, very interesting. We'll just run through some of the other scores from the weekend. Leeds won, Manchester City won on Saturday. I predicted Leeds to win this game. I thought they were fantastic value for money. City took the lead. Leeds had loads of chances, blood and thunder and proper Yorkshire grits and guts. And, I thought a draw was a good result. If anything, City were lucky, Kev.
Yeah, I think so. It was one of those ones. You're slightly surprised, with Man City making the sort of start that they've made in quite a few games, actually. You sort of expected them to go on and put the game to bed. And I wonder if there is just a nagging thing in that side now that they haven't really managed to do that, right, so far this season. And it used to be their trademark, really. They'd go ahead and they'd just, they'd end up strolling to a win. But we saw it last year. They just seemed to get in trouble. They'd be playing really well and just get in trouble. Yeah, I absolutely loved that second half. We were sat there watching it. It was no surprise at all when the goal actually went in, because they were well worth it, Leeds. And from a side that obviously conceded, 7 goals in the first 2 games, actually look really, really tight now at the back. But yeah, absolutely fabulous result.
I've been so impressed with Leeds. Marcel Bielsa's side, they have something that's really hard to get, they have momentum at the moment. Obviously, they won their last 6 or 7 games in the Championship, and they've carried on that form. And to have played Liverpool and Man City already in their first 4 games and have 7 points is remarkable.
There's no fear in this Leeds team whatsoever. There's no respect for anybody. Bielsa's like, go out, have a go, and give it all you got. And that's what they're doing. And fair play to them. We did predict at the start that Leeds were definitely staying up, and it looks like it. Chelsea woke up 4-0 against Palace. Impressive. A couple of penalties from Jorginho, Chilwell, Zuma. The Chelsea Lion has roared. Deserved winners, really. And they're up to 7 points from 4 games. Big money signings starting to shine.
Yeah, they were really good, weren't they? And I tell you who looked amazing. I thought Chilwell looked real class. Dangerous every time he touched it, and of course, banged in that first goal as well. Yeah, I mean, they've been waiting for him, haven't they? And I think, wow, he's gonna have a great season.
Yeah, completely. We may not see the best of Chelsea for a couple of months yet. Obviously, they brought in so many players. It's going to take them a little while to all gel. But I think once they find their perfect starting 11, they could be a really scary force this season.
Yeah, what about the table toppers? Everton flying again. Calvert-Lewin scores again. James Rodriguez with 2. I mean, Ancelotti's he's a genius, really, isn't he?
Well, it used to be one of the things that was said about Ancelotti is he was really good coming into a big team. He'd come into a mega team like a Real Madrid or something like that. But no one was ever sure whether he was the guy who was going to build a team, from the bottom up. And I think really when you look at what he's done at Everton so far, you'd really have to say that he's proved a point. And all right, early days in the season, Fino last week was saying that Liverpool had won the league, and we all laughed at him quite rightly. And we probably shouldn't get too carried away with Everton yet. And don't get me wrong, I really like Everton. I really like seeing them do well. It looks a really strong side. Obviously, not just in James. They've got Richarlison, of course, who's a real presence, and Calvert-Lewin. I don't know what it is about him, but somehow Ancelotti seems to have turned him into this poacher. Do we still use the phrase "fox in the box"? I don't know, but it just looks like one of those players who's going to score every time the ball comes to him in the 18-yard box.
I think that's now 9 goals in 6 games, which is a remarkable start to the season. And I agree, we shouldn't get too carried away with Everton, but we were also saying this about Leicester in 2016. Stranger things have happened, and we've seen some remarkable results already. I'm not saying Everton are going to win the league, but I think they could be in there challenging for the top 4.
There's a long season ahead, only 4 games gone, Joe, but yeah, definitely Everton look very, very impressive. In the evening game at St James's Park, Newcastle beat Burnley 3-1. I was harping on at the start of the season about Alan Saint-Maximin and how that he is a new Mane, or potentially better than Mane. The guy just turned this game on its head by himself. Newcastle took the lead through a brilliant individual goal from Saint-Maximin. Burnley equalised, and then I watched Newcastle, and they kind of went into a shell as soon as they went ahead. And I thought, why are you sitting back? Go out and attack Burnley, that they're bottom of the league. They invited Burnley on. Burnley got the goal. But what I did see, as soon as they conceded, they went straight back at Burnley. Saint-Maximin turns his man, knocks the ball in, and a goal for Newcastle. Penalty led on, 3-1 winners, deserved. Good for Steve Bruce going into the international break. And I think Newcastle will be pretty happy on 7 points after 4 games.
Completely. And I think he seems to have formed a really good partnership with Callum Wilson already. And they could be a very dangerous duo going forward, I think.
The only problem with that, Joe, is players like Saint-Maximin, who are really unbelievably quick and small, he regularly gets hamstring injuries, and he went off with half an hour to go in this game. Colin Winslow started really well. Last season, John Joe Shelby was Newcastle's top scorer with 6 goals. Already 4 games in, Callum Wilson has 4. So it's a good sign. Joe Linton's starting to kind of play a little bit more now, come out of his shell a bit. I mean, he was the biggest waste of money since Stefan Guivarch signed after winning the World Cup in '98 with France. For most Newcastle fans. But yeah, Joe Linton scored a couple of crackers in the League Cup, and he's starting to show a little bit of form, a little bit of, he's trying harder. And yeah, I mean, him, Callum Winslow, you got Andy Carroll coming off the bench. So things are looking okay for Newcastle. That was Saturday.
Before you go on, though, what are Newcastle's aspirations for this season? Is it a case of comfortably avoid relegation and maybe top half, or can they aim for something more?
What I have seen, Kev, in the last couple of years under Steve Bruce is what I've never seen under any coach under Mike Ashley is that he's played stronger teams in the Cup. Last season, I think they got to the FA Cup or the League Cup quarter-final. Already in the quarter-final of the League Cup this season. But realistically, this is not a football club that's aiming to do something or to finish high, or win a cup or something. It's a business for Mike Ashley. So it's all about staying in the Premier League, getting that 100 million, buying a couple of players to guarantee a safety. Anything else is a bonus. And that's how the business works for Mike Ashley, the business model. It's not about, he doesn't care what the fans think, obviously. We know that.
With all that in mind, though, do you think that Steve Bruce has had the credit that he deserves from the Newcastle fans?
No. And I think slowly but surely. But no, I'm on obviously a couple of Newcastle forums and being a Newcastle fan myself. And, he got a lot of stick after the Brighton defeat. And then they turned around with a 7-goal win in the League Cup, another win in the League Cup and penalties at Newport during the week, and then the win against Burnley. Look, what he has done is he's made Newcastle harder to beat. The depth obviously is not there, but good point, Joe. No, I don't think Steve Bruce gets the credit. And look, if you had have offered me Rafa Benitez at the start of the last season, I would have bit your hand off. But it is what it is, and support the team, not the regime.
And Burnley, there's not much hope for them as they're looking. They needed like something to go for them on deadline day. I think it's not just they've been really badly hit by departures as well. Don't forget Joe Hart went. I think Aaron Lennon went as well. In the last 18 months or so, certainly. Who's come in? I don't even know who's come in. I mean, wow, they're going to struggle, aren't they?
And I think the two best players in Rodriguez and Tarkowski are currently injured. But I think the one thing Burnley do have is they have a really good manager. And I'd always back Sean Dyche to pull them out of it by hook or by crook somehow.
Yeah, I think if by Christmas, if they're struggling, they might spend. But like, if you wanted a guy to get a team of underdogs together to fight and perform a miracle and stay up, Sean Dyche, yeah, he's the man. So I wouldn't write them off. But
no, we should be careful. Like we say, after 4 games, you're not going to call the top 4, and we should be careful not to call the bottom 4 either. It's just that some of those worst fears have been realised. Perhaps talking more there about Fulham than Burnley, who we would have expected to do a little bit better. But it's not it's not that much of a surprise to see maybe not the bottom 3, but maybe that bottom 4. You're starting to think 3 out of those 4. You wouldn't be all that surprised if those went. But yeah, early days.
Right, we have 2 games left, and these are 2 games that rocked the world of football. I'm in a WhatsApp group with a group of lads, and there's Man United and Liverpool fans in the group. And basically, the phone was going crazy. The Liverpool fan was just putting all sorts of, gifs and jokes and taking the piss out of Man United. Then 2 hours later, things went very different. Very, very different. And basically, he was just more or less sit back in your box and drink your 7-Up.
Yeah, I think with this one, I'm really unsure whether it was Man United were awful or Spurs were just really, really good. I think Spurs, when they have Gareth Bale fit, the front 3 of Son, Kane and Bale will be the best in the league.
I love that when they have Gareth Bale fit. I think he might be fit enough to play a few rounds of golf quite soon, but I think if might have been a better word there. But anyway, we'll see. Carry on, Joe, sorry.
But yeah, obviously, when you lose a player after 28 minutes, this can happen. So I don't think we should go too overboard on Man United being awful. That being said, their defence was an absolute shambles. Harry Maguire, we said last week, is not having a good season. He had an awful game. And just there seemed to be no kind of leadership, no one on the pitch to say, come on, this isn't good enough. And I think now Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is under extreme pressure now.
I agree.
The sending off that you mentioned there as well, I mean, we could talk a bit about that because, I don't really know why that was a sending off. But actually, there was a worse one. Luke Shaw shouldn't have been on the pitch. That was a terrible tackle. And so if I have some sympathy for Man United for what happened earlier, Luke Shaw shouldn't have been playing.
I mean, there's 2 sides here. If Man United concede a red card early on against Tottenham are favourites to win the game any day of the week, yeah?
Yep.
This Tottenham team got to the Champions League final 2 seasons ago. They have some world-class players. So it's not a shock that Tottenham would win. It's a bit of a shock that, Man United lay down and the scoreline was so high. Son, one in the season he's had so far, he's been super impressive. Harry Kane, I think, scored 3 or 4 in the Europa League during the week. They're hitting form. On the other side, Man United have a team full of world-class players. This is a coaching problem. This comes from the top. And I said a few weeks ago, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, like, Kevin brought up the fact that he was the sweetheart of Man United and he scored the winning goal in the Champions League final. But that doesn't make you a good coach. He went down with Cardiff. I don't know how he did with Molde or whoever they were in Norway, but, Pochettino is there. And they've got to go for somebody else. It's clearly not working.
Well, who they've gone for is Edinson Cavani, who is a 33-year-old.
I think he might be 34, is he?
34 now.
Yeah.
I can't see him being the answer, personally.
He's not. It's another Zlatan. It's another Schweinsteiger. I brought it up, actually, I think 2 weeks ago. I said, look, there's a guy in Edinson Cavani that's available, and he's a great signing for somebody like for Newcastle or Southampton, for example, yeah? But if you're Man United in the Champions League, Cavani's 34, he's not the answer.
And I think as well, what's really key with that one is Cavani was available in June. So why wait until October, the last second, panic buy to buy him? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if panic buy is quite the right phrase. Maybe it is, but it is disappointing again, isn't it? The way Man United seemingly have been doing their transfer business. And I think there is something about just getting those deals done on that last day, which just smacks of, yeah, all right, I'm not going to go as far as say desperation, but just other things not quite working out. Yeah, I don't know if Woodward, deserves a bit of criticism as well as Solskjaer, or maybe even more. And maybe it is something more in the setup of Man United that doesn't make it all that easy for the coaches. But no, it's definitely true that Man United team needs strengthening in areas where they haven't been able to strengthen for whatever the behind the scenes reasons. And I think until they do, you're not really going to see that team absolutely challenge for the title, probably under any coach actually.
Well, not for a while, not under Solskjaer. I mean, they signed Cavani, Tellez, Diallo and Palestri. No Jadon Sancho. For me, these were panic buys. Okay, now deadline 2 is coming up on the 16th of October, which means that English clubs can buy from each other. Premier League to the EFL clubs can buy. They can't buy from Europe. So the Man United might be in the market for more players. But, who are these guys? You wanted Jadon Sancho. You didn't get him. I just think Solskjaer is going around like a headless chicken, and sorry, Man United fans, I don't see a good season ahead for you.
I'll go straight back to what I said at the start of the season. I think it goes for the goalkeeper as well, and I think until they're prepared to take the really difficult decision that they need to take with that goalkeeper, then things are not going to go well for them, because they've got a backup goalkeeper there who performed in the Premier League so well last season that I think he deserves a chance, and I think David De Gea is no longer a title-winning goalkeeper.
I just want to give a quick mention to Jose Mourinho, because
it must have been fun for him.
He looked so smug, didn't he? At the final whistle, he kind of patted Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on the head. But what's amazing about this Spurs team is when you think of a Mourinho team, you think of, parking the bus, not really attractive football. Spurs came to Southampton and scored 5 goals. They then scored 7 against Maccabi Haifa. And now they've scored 6 against Man United. What is going on with this Mourinho team?
They probably should have scored 10 against Newcastle. Obviously Newcastle robbed them at the end, thank God. But yeah, Jose has got to be a happy chappy. He's got Kane, Gareth Bale, Song, Lucas Moura, hope I pronounce this right, Vinicius, the Brazilian striker they just signed, Dele Alli staying, they're banging in the goals. Happy days at Tottenham and happy days for Jose.
And listen, 6-1, it's just one of those seasons, Joe, you mentioned at the start, something about it feeling like training games or something like that, And I just think there's something about this season, and sorry, that's too abstract, isn't it? It's not about the season, it's the fact that there's no fans there. And I think there's something about games once they've started to sort of, tilt in one direction, it just seems to keep, it seems to be very hard to turn it around, doesn't it? And I think it's not enough to say it's just gone nuts, but it's just once Tottenham had the upper hand, once Man United were down to 10 men, it wasn't actually all that much of a surprise to see them continue to rack up goals. And I think if it had been a normal season with fans there, we probably would have seen a 3-1 or a 4-1. And it's just something about this season, not having the fans in the thing, maybe it does feel like training games to the players or something like that. The pressure of the crowd is not there. Not just pressure, but the kind of, I don't know about you, but when I'm watching football and my side's winning and maybe the other side pulls a goal back, you start to get nervous, and I think nerves get generated around the crowd or something like that. And what actually seems to have happened is, without that, they're just playing like they play football, and once someone's gone ahead, it's like a train ride then that just keeps on going.
You also got to take into consideration as well the red card. I think Tottenham are a team that you do not want to concede a red card to the way they're playing. They're going to punish you. Like I said, Tottenham were in the Champions League final a couple of seasons ago. They got some world-class players. It's not as if they they lost to somebody like Aston Villa, who were almost relegated last season, which brings us on to our final result and piece of the evening, unless Kevin's got another poem.
Of course.
Of course he does. But this result for me is the biggest shock in football this year. Liverpool are going in as champions. They're unbeaten such a long time. They got this kind of smugness about them. And I did say to Kev earlier on, look, they've won it for the first time in 30 years. Will the same motivation be there going in for the big stars? They need to sign somebody. They signed Jota. How well did I pronounce that?
Yeah, that's pretty good, mate.
And Alcantara. Super players, which would motivate any dressing room. Mane's out with COVID. I think Shaqiri's out with COVID too. But Aston Villa, buoyed by this, Jack Grealish signed a new contract, got a couple of players in. They were out of this world. And I mean, this will be a DVD for Aston Villa.
They were out of this world. I think it's important to remember that. They were absolutely fantastic. They came with an attitude which was, second to none. They gave it everything, and they took advantage, of course, of that really pretty atrocious mistake earlier on for the goalkeeper, and then continued to take advantage of what were a combination of, and I know you're gonna slag me off for this, a combination of, yes, absolutely mistakes, and 2 or 3 quite big slices of luck. And don't get me wrong, Liverpool deserved to get thrashed. Don't get me wrong, but I think 3 or 4 of the goals were pretty wild or pretty significant deflections. They took all the luck that went their way. They were brilliant, especially when Liverpool's, it sounds ridiculous to say now, but sort of semi-threatened to come back when they got it back to 2-1. It was immediately, bam, get out there again and get at them again. And no, they were absolutely wonderful. But I think it's a combination of the two, isn't it? Aston Villa were fantastic, they came. And Liverpool, I think at least 3 or 4 players put in arguably the worst performances of their careers, not just since they've been at Liverpool.
I want to highlight Ollie Watkins, the Aston Villa striker. What a story he's got. Yeah. So only a couple of years ago, he was playing for Exeter in League 2.
Wow.
He then got his move to Brentford. And then there were a few eyebrows raised this year when Aston Villa bought him for £28 million. But I think he's, repaid that already.
Yeah, Jack Grealish with a couple of goals and 3 assists as well.
Jack Grealish was really, really good. Turned in one of those performances, which, I think... Obviously, Villa fans, like you say, will continue watching this on DVD. And I hope other fans, neutrals in England, watch the way he played. Because I think that was just exceptional. I think he's a real talent. I think, it's extraordinary that Villa have managed to keep him. I think it's great that they've managed to keep him. And I think he's going to cause trouble for absolutely everyone he plays this season.
I thought Liverpool were defensively very, very naive. And a lot of teams will look at this now and go, look, this is how we can really get at them now. This is how we can do damage to this Liverpool defence. Yeah,
I have a question for Kevin as well. Do you think that Jordan Henderson's value has gone up since he's been out of the team?
Oh, without question. I think you saw it in almost every game last season when he wasn't there as well. And how much calmer they are when he comes back. And he was my player of the season when we talked about this right at the back end of last year.
You're passing the ball forward from midfield now. He's not there.
Yeah, I mean, but he's one of those players who just makes sure that the players around him don't lose their heads in the spectacular way that obviously Liverpool did. And, like I say, something about this season, no fans being there, means it's almost like a squash game somehow. If you ever play squash and someone, I don't know if either of you play squash, but someone starts hitting the ball into the corner and you just can't get it back, and then they seem to play the same shot over and over again, and it just becomes this frustration and things just continue to go wrong. And I think Henderson is the sort of player you need when things are just going that badly wrong, and he's the one who's going to say, hang on a minute, lads, this is not the way we play. And I think without him on the pitch, you really notice it.
Squash, Joe. The Liverpool defence were certainly squashed. 7-2 to Aston Villa. I have to say that, the international break could not have come at a better time for Liverpool and Man United, because this is an absolute disaster. And now is the chance for the coaches to kind of get them in and regroup. Some will be away.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, I honestly don't know if that's true or not. It may be the reverse, right? It may just be that what you desperately want to do after a game like that is get back out. And the trouble is, the players, like you say, are all going off. That he's left with, like, the kids, really. In fact, most of the fringe players are off going to their international teams, or they're going to the under-21s. There's almost no one left. And do you guys know what the next game up is for Liverpool?
It's against Everton.
It's against Everton.
Is it home or away?
It's at Goodison. And for that to come up next, and for that to be kind of I think if they'd have beaten Villa, right, they'd have been really looking forward to that game. And I think they'll still be looking forward to it in a different way because it is an opportunity to come roaring back. But you'd want that game straight after this weekend's games, right? You'd want that to come on the Saturday, 6 days later. You want to really have at them. But for all the players to disappear, to all be thinking about their national teams and then to come back and try to get it back, I think that's hard. And honestly, if I had to pick now, I think Everton are going to do them.
2 whole weeks as well, this international break. It's not a short one, so they have 2 weeks to kind of stew on that result. For me, I think it's a negative.
I mean, look, they're still, I don't know when the last time they lost a game in the league. They were knocked out of the cup by Arsenal on penalties last week. 9 points from 4 games. It's not all negative for Liverpool, but for Everton, really, they're flying. And I can't remember the last time that Everton beat Liverpool. There's been a lot of hard luck stories. I remember a couple of seasons ago, the ball bounced off the bar in the last minute and fell in front of Origi, maybe, who knocked it in. So Everton will be out for revenge.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for them, isn't it? And it's like going back to the 1980s. I mean, I'm the only
Everton
person
and
here,
Aston Villa up there, yeah.
but I'm the only person old enough to really remember that. And I've been thinking a lot about people like Howard Kendall and thinking about those great Everton sides who won titles and challenged for titles and had the city so proud of them. And I just love to see this. I love to see Everton having a team that they can be proud of, because that wasn't always the case. Sometimes Everton's aspirations seem to be limited, to just doing, getting a couple of points off Liverpool or just proving a point against Liverpool. And I don't think that's the case now. You were saying before about how they should aim for top 4. Absolutely, they should aim for top 4. Absolutely. It's a team who, like as we said before, they've got the best player in the league, right, on their side. Like James Rodriguez is, to my mind, a player who finds spaces that no one else can find. He's a fantastic player, and you've got. All right, I spoke a little bit about Chilwell and Grealish earlier on as well, who were really good. But James looks.
Did you see San Maxima?
All right, let's not get into that. And yeah, I love Sadio Mane as well, and we could have that conversation all day. But no, look, they're a really good team. They've got a really good squad. But if you had to pick one little hole there, you would just wonder: do they have a title-winning goalkeeper? And if there's one Achilles heel that I think they're going to have, it might just be that, because maybe if I had to say, I'd say top 4 might be the limit of that.
I think if you're Calvert-Lewin and James Rodriguez and you've seen that Liverpool defence, you're rubbing your hands with glee.
I think so too. Sadio Mane came out and said, they would do absolutely everything they could to put it right next time. But that's the thing, as I said before, without having that time together as a team, I think that's going to be really hard. I think they're going to come back from all 4 corners of the earth. Sorry, I'm sounding like a flat earther there somehow. But anyway, from every region of the earth. And I think it's going to be really difficult for them to just turn it on immediately. And we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. A couple of weeks off, a couple of weeks for Liverpool and Man United to stew over huge defeats, which really, like I said, have rocked the world of football. Made everybody look at the Premier League and think, wow, this is why it's the most exciting league in the world. You don't see Juventus, Real Madrid or Barcelona getting smashed by 6 or 7 goals. It doesn't happen. This league is, even more this season because of the lack of fans, everything that's gone on. We need football. The world needs the Premier League. I know the money is crazy, but this is the reason why. Poetic stuff for myself. Speaking of poetic stuff, the great poet in our studio, Kev, has got another masterpiece for us this evening. What have you got, Kev?
Well, here we go. I'm changing my meter a little bit, so it's going to, it's back to shorter sentences this week, so shorter lines. So we'll see how we go.
Fire away.
4 weeks gone and still insane. The Premier League's a hurricane. Goals are raining from the heavens. Liverpool United at 6s and 7s, and still 2 teams with perfect grades. Everton's best start in decades, and Villa, still so underrated, leave Jurgen's men humiliated. On Sunday, Tottenham Hotspur soared, the sun shone bright and Harry roared, and frankly, 6-1 hardly flattered, as cameras at sad Old Trafford turned to the exec vice-chairman, Woodward. Would he now determine to buy the targets of his coach, or take his customary approach? And yes, you guessed it, goodness me, the solution to this travesty was not to buy a centre-back, or Jadon Sancho in attack. Instead, it's welcome Cavani, who at the age of 33 will step right in, top up his pension, as Martial starts his suspension. Because yes, as Everton pulled away, we got to enjoy Deadline Day, a carnival that twice a year causes hopes to reappear. As outside grounds, the glum reporters peer in cars while real supporters hit refresh in expectation of signing this year's big sensation. But let's get back to all the larks at Goodison and Villa Park. James stars, the Blues delighting, a 4-2 pummelling of Brighton. Now, Sunday wasn't for the squeamish, as Ollie Watkins and Jack Grealish gave displays that were immense and picked apart a Reds' defence that might just kindly be described as collectively mesmerised. What's that, Van Dijk? A sliding tackle? This truly was a rare debacle. Arsenal, meanwhile, nicked a win, 2 nice assists from Bellerin. Southampton clicked back at St Mary's, Chelsea starting to look scary. And what of City at Ellen Road? Could they regroup, recoup, reload? A sterling start, but soon Bielsa has City needing Alka-Seltzer. Chaos reigns and there's Rodrigo, another small dent to Pep's ego, and no real scope to fix mistakes. Damn these international breaks. When we return, the gods provide a derby up on Merseyside. Here's something Reds won't want to hear. Everton could go 6 points clear. So enjoy this short and sweet hiatus. Forget your team's prevailing status. Read a book or walk the dog. Recite some lines of dialogue. Go out and play some basketball. It's only football after all.
Brilliant, Cav, once again. Brilliant. This has been the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Speak to you soon.
The poetic Kev, thank you.
Cheers, JP.
Enjoy the international break. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.